there, it's Jen again here teaching you about abstracts. Today we're going to make an abstract together. You've been given some different supplies and I'm going to go through and show you an example of how to make an abstract with what I'm doing. But you don't have to use the exact same ways that I make an abstract. You can use your supplies in whatever way you see fit after you've watched the video. Something important to remember is that while you're painting and while you're creating your abstract, even though abstracts are not necessarily meant to tell a message, your audience is still going to interpret them because that's the way that our brain works. We don't just look at things and go, ooh, color. We think of different things related to those colors. We think of different things related to shape, size, texture, space, and all the different elements of art. So it's important when you're doing this to have a little bit of a plan. A lot of times people think abstracts have no plan, that they're just random. But it's quite the opposite. Because abstracts don't have representational art, which means they're focusing on something like realistic, like an apple or a person or a flower. Instead, they're using all the different elements of art like shapes and color and texture. When they use those things, it's important that they plan well for an abstract. So abstracts require that planning. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use a couple different things. You're going to want to get out some household scissors. You will be supplied with string. You will be supplied with pieces of sand, little piles of sand in cups. You will also get various different colors sent to you. Some of them will be pre-mixed, some of them will not. You'll have to mix your colors together, which is not a problem. You can do it. And speaking of colors and speaking of abstracts, what I would like for you to do is, if you haven't watched it, it is part of this workshop. It's kind of a homework assignment, sorta, not quite, is I would really like for you to watch the emotional or subjective color theory video I have posted. And then I also want you to watch the design principles presentation. The color one is a little long because it's very complicated, but the design principles isn't that long. If you don't have time to watch the color one, I suggest at least watching the design principles because that's one of the most important things in an abstract. You can't design something if you don't know how the pieces of design work. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to think about, first of all, the different things that I would really like. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have focus on color. I'm going to focus on shape. I'm going to focus on proportion and texture. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to think about proportion. I have this little canvas in front of me here, and this is a 11 by 14 size canvas. So there's different things I can do with this. I have to think about where I want my heavy. And when I say heavy, you can refer back to your design principles video about where the visual weight's going to be. So what I like to do is I like to mark my visual weight area with an X. And I think I'm going to do my visual weight area right about here. Now, a lot of times there's something called the rule of thirds, which is basically you divide whatever you're making like this, okay? And people say, put whatever's interesting on there. That is baloney. It is not helpful and it gets you stuck into a routine. So I'm going to have my main emphasis be in this area. I'm going to write E here and plan it out, okay? And then I'm going to have some kind of roundness here. So I want to have something that leads from this side to this corner. I want movement and roundness. The reason I want that is because I'm going to be using string, and string lays round as it is. So let's not fight that. Let's incorporate that. So I'm going to make kind of a round shape, a little wild, kind of interesting. Next, I want to think about if this side is interesting here, if it feels heavy or does it feel empty. Now, something that's empty can also be the focus, which is a little confusing. So think of a big, dark, black room and just a real light gray little ball in the room. You'll notice the little ball, but only because the room is so empty. So space is really important, and we have to think about whether we want to fill the space with things or not a lot of things. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have it go from heavy, and I'm just using this to plot out how far it goes. Doesn't mean it's going to be a circle, it just means as it goes on it gets lighter, that those areas are going to be less visually heavy. So we're going to do something to dull them down so they don't feel like if you picked it up it would be heavy there. It should be feeling heavy here and then not as heavy out this way. Now we have this division here, and I like that. I have some roundness here, and because we're using the principles of variety, if I have roundness of shape, I should probably have either a lot more roundness everywhere or some roundness and a decent amount of other shapes. So I have to figure out what I'm going to go for. I think I'm going to go for mostly roundness with some other shapes incorporated in there. So this roundness here is feeling like it's heavy in this area, and then we have a line that kind of comes down this way, and we can travel along with that, really kind of feeling more like diagonal lately. There you go. But I feel like over here we need some kind of harsh lines happening. So I'm going to make some lines like this that come over in different areas, okay? And I think I want a little bit of texture. I want something to pop up, because over here we're going to have string. If we're going to have string in this area, I think I want some of the sand to go through here, the texture, the thickness, okay? So I'm going to make lines like this, and I'm not quite sure exactly the colors that are going to be in there yet. I think that I'm going to do brighter colors here, because since it's texturized, it's going to feel like it's coming towards you. And if we use warmer colors, they're going to feel like they're extra coming towards you. And if we use cooler colors throughout here, then it's going to feel like it's receding, even though it's texturized, so we'll feel balanced visually. And I'm not quite sure what we're going to do over here yet. I like these lines going back and forth that feel kind of gritty. So what we might do over here is we might use a layer of colored sand or different colors, maybe something more neutral. And then I think over in this area, I'm going to go like this, kind of in a half circle. It's going to start to get real dark over here. So that way it feels like it wouldn't tip off like this. If you held it in your hand like this in the middle, it wouldn't go like that and fall off. I still want it to feel kind of wobbly when you're looking at it. And if it feels like it's a little wobbly in your mind, guess what? You're creating movement, and that's very good. That's what we're looking for. Once again, don't forget the principles of design. Look back at that video if you're not sure. It's really important. In your kit, you have been provided with gloves. So, unless you're very adventurous, you want to go ahead and put gloves on. This is going to get a little messy. Before you start painting and mixing things, you're also going to want to put down a garbage bag or something on your table, because this can be really difficult to deal with and clean up afterwards. You're going to need a lot of rubbing alcohol and a lot of scraping to get this type of paint off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down some warm colors in this area here like we discussed. I'm going to go straight in and I'm going to dump out some red there. Notice how thick it is. I'm happy with that. I like that it's thick. I'm going to use a brush, and I'm going to go ahead and move this around like so. And I want the middle to stay the most red, but on the outskirts, I'm going to want it to start turning orange. So I have some pre-mixed orange here just for the sake of time, and I'm going to start going around and putting this orange down. And notice how when I'm doing it, I'm not really worrying too much about the brush strokes, because I'm going to have so much texture on here, it's just going to add to it. So I'm not going to try to blend it perfectly. In the middle, however, I am going to slap it around and have a little fun like this. Now that we have this going on here, I want it to feel like it's starting to get a little cooler as it goes out there. So one way to cool something down is to make it feel darker, or you can also add a complementary color to it, which will also make it feel darker, but in a colorful way. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue and I'm going to mix it out here like this so that our orange starts to get darker out this way. I'm going a little heavy on the blue. Bringing out like so. And remember, this is a workshop to kind of get you thinking about how these things work. You don't have to feel intimidated. It's an exploration process. Really good abstract art usually takes time, okay? When you see those fluid arts that happen very quickly, but they look really good, some of them are chance, but a lot of it is the planning by the artist. So they know what's going to happen. They know what kind of properties they're trying to make show up, okay? As we get out this way, I'm going to start switching. I think I'm going to start going to a slightly cooler kind of color out this way, like this. I'm going to blend that in a minute with a little bit of another color here. Okay. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to pick up some blue, moving over there. Pick up some blue over here as well. There you go. Kind of slapping it around there. Same thing, I'll slap it on the border there. And I think in this area right here, purple and orange do not get along so well, but I do want it to feel cooler over there. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of blue and purple, and then just a little bit of white in the middle there, like this. And I'm going to go back and forth and see how that kind of cools down my orange in that area too. If it hasn't already dried. Bringing it in that way. I'm going to get some over here. There you go. Working it back and forth like so. Cooling it off. Not too worried that I'm going over that border, doesn't really matter. Okay, get some going over there too. I like those brush strokes. All right, so we're getting some coloration going here. And we know that either we're gonna have a lot of contrast with this on top of it, or it's gonna be very similar and kind of built up. Now, over here in the middle, I'm going to want, I think, some cooler colors coming through there. So I also want texture. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to take some of my sand, and I'm going ahead and add some of this blue to it, right into it. And since we're going to be using it almost like a scooper, not so much like a spreader, I'm going to go ahead and get a smaller brush that is also flat, like this. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that paint up with the sand. Now, kind of doing this, if you do it in the right amount, works really nicely. If you use too much sand, it's really hard to get the paint to do anything. And if you use not enough, it just doesn't work very well. You can't see it. And you have to get just the right amount of sand in there. Should look kind of gritty like concrete does. Okay, and what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start to plop in some thick paint along this edge over here. Like so. Just setting it on there. Now you can try to sculpt it if you want. That's a possibility too. And what I mean sculpt is add brush strokes to it. You're not gonna be able to literally sculpt this. It's going to flatten out no matter what to a certain degree. And acrylic paint shrinks because it is a plastic paint. So it's going to get smaller no matter what you do. So don't think that if you pile it 3 feet high, it's gonna stay that way. You really need a bulking agent that's a lot stronger, and you need a heavy body acrylic to do that. Okay, so I have that there. I'm going to bring some of this out this way like that so it touches over here. this one out here this way, and I was doing pure blue there. So I have some left here, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some white into here. So I'm adding white into my sand. I'm going ahead and I'm going to mix it like so, so that I have a concoction that's like a lighter blue color. And I don't want to use, whoops, too much of that. I guess there's some over there now. That's all right. I'll round it out later. Put a little bit there, maybe a little bit over here in this area. And we're using wild kind of lines that are curved throughout this area here. Curving our lines. I'm going to gently touch the edges there like that. And if you're a person who really likes Impressionism, this is a really fun way to paint with Impressionism. Not just the brush and the paint colors, but to use that texture. It really just adds life to it. It really picks up a lot. So if you're somebody who likes textural brush strokes, ooh, you'll like this technique, bulking up. You can also use salt, although salt has a chemical component to it that we don't really deal with sand. So it can be a little difficult sometimes. It'll crack and do weird stuff. So I don't use that as often, but you can in a pinch. Okay, so we have that there. And now what I'm going to do here is I want to kind of swirl these areas together a little bit, like this. I'm going to go back and forth, and you can see that it kind of picks some of that color up. It also leaves these areas where it kind of sits thick enough. Going back and forth, getting some fun texture in there. You can pull some of it down this way if you want. You can go up a little bit. Just don't overdo it so you can't see that color anymore. Go ahead right here. I think I'm going to add a little bit more right there. I like that it's rounded out like that. Okay. So as a last kind of thing here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a lot of white. I'm going to add it back in here. The only thing is when you use paint like this and you use it with a bulking agent like this, like sand, use cheaper paint. If you use the real expensive stuff, you'll end up spending a lot of money. So this is a perfect time to use that paint that you get at Walmart. Okay, that's good there. Add a little bit more over here. Notice how it's brighter. And I want this area to kind of feel almost like, kind of like water, right? Like it's swirling around, and it feels like, kind of like a tide almost. So I'm patching it in there, thinking about how it goes from here to there. But I also want it to kind of tie in. I don't want it to feel like it is on its own out there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to snake some down this way a little bit to kind of connect it together. There we go. Get a little bit going over here. Keep dropping paint. Kind of fill that area in over there. And while you're working with sand and a bulking agent like this, depending on how the paint is made, sometimes it dries a lot slower, sometimes it dries a lot faster. Now I'm going to use a pure white as much as I can get it there. And I'm going to use that to create a feeling of some waves crashing over here on a shore. Something kind of like that. waves out this way. I'm kind of bopping around a little bit. Turning the brush like so. Okay, I think that's good for the blue for right now. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to set my brush aside. Make sure you put your brush in water immediately because you will not like the results if you don't. Now, what I'm going to do over here is I am going to stick my string into this yellow vat of paint that I have created. Now remember, you can change anything that we're doing here. I'm simply showing you an example. You don't have to do what I do. So just so you can see it a little bit better, I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to stick it in the paint. Grab a pencil to go ahead and cover it with paint. Now it's purple to begin with, so it's going to want to fight. The yarn that I send you is probably going to be lighter yarn, but this one was handy, so that's okay. All right, need a little bit more yellow coming through, like so. And the canvases that you probably are getting are probably going to be 8 by 10, I'm assuming. So this is all going to be on a smaller scale. I have a slightly larger scale that I'm working with, just so you can see a little bit better and it shows up on camera more accurately. All right, looking pretty good, pretty wild child. All right, now the hard part is finding where the string begins. Oh boy, where is the string? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set it down, and I'm going to try to gently turn the string so I can start to see some different effects going on here of texture. I'm kind of getting messy on the sides here. This technique's actually way harder to do with gloves on. Okay. It's going up there. I feel like I'm gonna bring it back down, kind of like so. Okay, so we have some raised texture there. And what I want to do is I want to grab just a little bit of my red. I'm going to tap in some of those spots because I don't want it too stark. Don't want it to feel too rope-like. Touching those areas, and I think I'm probably going to speckle out here a little bit to kind of tie it in. It's going to kind of make us look back this way. Okay, so I have a lot of stuff on my gloves right now. Ooh. I'm going to do one more with this, and then this time I'm going to do it with kind of a orangey color. So I'm taking my gloves, cutting another piece of string. I'm going to ball it up like so, and I'm going to stick it in my yellow paint. I'm going to add a little bit more of my yellow paint, and then I have to add a little bit of what color? Red, correct. If you said another color, go back and watch the color video. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this all together like so. And right now we're concentrating on shape since we're doing this, but we're also doing texture at the same time. Now this is a little dry, it's soaked up a lot, so I'm going to want to make sure that I add a little bit more in there because we really want it to be sloppy and stick to the canvas. We don't want it to come off. We want it to dry like glue. And that's kind of important in this process. If you don't have it sitting there like glue, you're going to have some problems. So going ahead and mixing it together like so. Looks good. Put our little pencil away. You can use chopsticks or the end of an old paintbrush. It doesn't really matter. All right, there is our ooey gooey string. We'll start over here. And it's going to go around a little bit, but I kind of want to, I don't want to coil too much. I want to do something where it feels like it's leading you around a little bit. I'll dance it up into the blue a little bit, like it's going into an area it's not really supposed to. Kind of smush it into it a little bit there. Steal some of that. Kind of mix the boundaries between the areas a little bit. Interesting. Interesting, says I. Now that we have that, I kind of want to add something that brings this area and this area together. So I'm going to go ahead and take off my gloves for the moment. I'm going to turn them inside out. Make sure you turn them inside like that. Stuff them in there so they don't get all messy. Kind of looks Van Gogh-ish there. Go ahead and put your junk off to the side here. And you can use your paintbrush to do this, but since I have the larger bottles, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add blobs of paint like this in different spots here. And I'm going to try to keep them medium-sized, nothing too big. I want some medium-sized ones and some smaller ones. I want them to be generally pretty rounded, if possible. Like so. And add some over here. There you go. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with a little bit of red on each one. Just a tiny bit. Like so. Try to keep them mostly in the middle. Doesn't have to be. Dropping little bits into each one, like so. Missed that one. Whoops. Going through. All right, there we go. Funky. Now, I can leave them like that so they're kind of blobby, or I can kind of drag them out so they do some other things. I'm feeling adventurous. Let's drag them out. I'm going to use the end of my pencil, and I'm going to go to the middle, and I'm going to drag through like this. So I'm going to have them so they kind of wiggle around, I think, like that. Looks like a reverse egg of some kind. Am I trying to tell a message right now? No, I'm really not. I'm not trying to tell a secret, a quiet secret. Someone will interpret it as something, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to go for that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull some of these out. And I want those to kind of come out in weird, stringy ways, like so. Now this has been all very nice here, but I feel like we're missing something over here, which is some darkness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get out a brush, and I'm going to get a little bit of black, and I am going to paint in a couple of the areas where there's hoops, like this, just to kind of give some stark relief. Probably inside of one like this. And then I'll fade it. And that'll give us some contrast on this side. We have contrast over here, and because we need a focal point, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to add some black in the middle here, like that. I may even bring some out like this across. Because remember, we said contrast can be in color, it could be in texture, it could be in lines, It could be in shape. Any of those things that are different than the thing next to them. It's kind of like when you're a little kid and you watch Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. Do you remember that at all? That was my jam back in the day. Go ahead and clean off our brush. Let this sit over here. Get off the extra there. What we're probably going to want is a brush that can hold a lot of water. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just scrub the area a little bit downward like that. And then probably add a little bit of red back into over here. Kind of play with the edge a little bit. All right, so it feels darker there, kind of brings us up. All right, so over here we're going to be doing some crosses, some crossing. So what I'm going to do is I do want some texture over there, but not a lot. And I think what I want over there is dark purples and dark blues with hints of some of the other colors. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some sand and add it to my blue, but not too much. This is a slightly darker blue than what you probably have. And I'm going ahead and get a flat brush or a filbert brush. I think I'll use a filbert. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up real well, like so. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put the paint in this generalized area. I'm going to steal some of the stuff that's on the edge there and mix it in a little bit here and there. Mixing it over there like that. Then I really want it to be darker, so I'm going to grab some black and add that to this blue. Add some over here. I want it even darker than that. I want more purple and I want more black. Mix it up so it gets more brackish. There we go. Cross like that. Bring some here. And I want this to feel like some kind of, I think like an alien landscape is what I'm seeing in my mind. Over here, I really want it much darker. So I picked up a lot of the black for this area here. So that goes back to that balance act. I'm going to go ahead and flip around like this. And I'm going to dance it in through some of these like that, just to kind of reiterate like these weird wavies that are going on here. And then I feel like I need something to tie in over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some fat blackish bluish dots over here to lead us this way. Yeah, I like that. I want us to go right back up to this. That'd be a nice big one there. This one gets even bigger until we get led all the way to the water's edge. I want our brain to feel like we're getting tricked into the water. Okay. And we need little breadcrumbs for us to follow, mental breadcrumbs, wherever they can be. That's fine. Going over here, bipping and bopping. And then I need to decide what to do with this area over here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it be an area of intense light color. So I'm cleaning off my brush very carefully. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some white on my brush, and I'm going to gently kind of slap it in here like this to lighten up the area. And I'm going to start adding some cool colors soon. Notice how I just keep going through the thickness like this. I want this area back here to feel watery-ish, wavy-ish, lots of energy. Oops. Didn't mean to knock you across the room there, my bad. Okay, so now that we have that there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the paintbrush and I want to start to scratch across the surface like this because I want to pull some of that this way. I want to start to create something that doesn't feel quite as fluid. So I'm going to bring some lines across like that. Probably going to put a couple like this over here too. Maybe find one and pull through one or two of them like this. If the shape is the same, it's still going to feel similar. And what we want to do next is we want to close our eyes, we want to think of something else, and we want to look at what we're working on so far so we can start to evaluate what do we want to add next. What's next in here? So I went away from my artwork, I'm closing my eyes, I'm looking, and I can tell already what I need on this side is going to be circles. I need some circles. These circles here came forward, physically forward, so what I want is some stamped circles. So what we can do with that is we can use one of these little cups. You can dump the extra sand in another one. And I'm going to go ahead and add some cool colors to this by going and stamping on the edges like so of red and yellow. And if I have any orange left, I can use some orange. Once again, you can change colors, you can change your scheme, you can even change the elements that you're using of art for your design. You do not have to do what I'm doing. So if it's balanced over here, I have some dark that's going to be balanced over there. I want to add some more of that in. I think I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these like that. I'm going to have to go back and get some more. Over this way like that. Okay. And now I want some slightly more deliberate circles. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my shader brush out, or I'm sorry, my liner brush, and I'm going to get pure black all by itself. And I'm going to mimic the feel of what's going on over here with this kind of snaky line. And I'm going to get my liner brush out. You can use a round to do this. And I'm going to go right into it. I'm going to add some black throughout there like that. I might even do some sprinkles. Something that feels wobbly and rope-like and worm-like. When I get out to the edge, I really want to overdo it, like so, because that's going to make it feel a little more balanced, a little darker there. And I like the focal point that's out there, but I feel like it's not strong enough. So we need to add contrast. You can add contrast several ways. But I'm going to go with adding actual color contrast out there. The lines. even through everything going on here, I'm going to skip through like that to make it feel like this line is working its way out this way. Then if I really want to, I can put this in there. I can grab something that's real thick like an eraser. If I really want to, I can go whoa, right through this. So we can see some big physical changes if you like that. Ooh, I kind of do like that. There we go. Now, I don't like how clean that line is, so I'm destroying it a little bit. And I don't like how clean the center is there. And what I'm going to do next is I am going to go ahead and find a way to kind of bring this in. And we had some lines before in there, so I think if I turn it this way and I scrape some big lines like that in between, it'll kind of bring us back diagonally like that. Interesting. It's fun to play with these different areas. Adding little lines here and there. There you go. And I think one of the last things I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put on just a little bit more of this line work here, except I'm going to double it up. I'm probably going to put it down kind of wild through the center. I think I'm going to do it with black. And I think I'm going to use some sand. So I'm going to get out some black paint, and I want to really thicken this little rope up that I'm making here. I'm adding it right in there like this. And I'm kind of turning it, rotating it, so it gets the paint and the sand on it. This part's going to be a little messy again. Kind of wish I still had my gloves, but I'll survive. So will you. Okay, mixing it all together like so. Like that. Kind of really getting it saturated. I wanted a little more ooey gooey than that. Adding a little bit more paint. Mixing it all together. There we go. All right, time to get messy. Are you ready? I'm ready. So, I'm going to keep this guy like this right here. Let's start him right there, or her, or they. And we're going to coil and come up like so. I like this grittiness to this now. It's so gritty. It's very chunky. Whoop. Going around, making these kind of chunky, curvy designs until I bring it back there, and I'm going to kind of stamp it a little bit so it merges with the other paint that's there. That's fun. I like that. I like the high level of contrast. I do like that very much. Ooh, look at my hands now. So what we want to do now is, I think the last thing is we're going to want to contrast that as well. And I'm thinking maybe we do that with, let's think. Well, black and white is the very most contrasty thing as far as colors go, almost anyway. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of white to some sand, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dab it on so that it makes a line. I'm going to use my liner brush, gently swirling and twirling my liner brush around in circles, like so. This will be more gray than it is white, huh? Ooh, look at how sloppy that is. It's a sloppy jalopy. Going ahead and I'm adding slops of this texture. Like how it picked up some of the other color. There we go. This is a fun exercise to do, just to kind of plan out something a little bit in your mind and then kind of go with it. I changed a lot of this as I went through, but I like that. That's part of the process that I like about abstract, is you can change things here and there. A lot of abstract artists paint like that, but some of them are very meticulous when they're painting, and they're known to really plan everything down to the T. It really kind of depends what mood you're in and what kind of artist you are. Okay. And as the last thing here, we have color. We have definitely a lot of shapes. We have texture and we have proportion. So proportion is the shape and size of things and how far apart it is. I feel like the last thing that this could use, I keep saying the last thing, but I'm going to say it again, is a little bit of some line work, of some dripping. So what you can do at home is you can use your brush to get real wet, and then you're going to want to drag it over the surface. I'm going to do this with the paint. You want a thin layer, like so. I'm going to go ahead and repeat this to have rhythm, even though there's lots of other things going on underneath. I'm going to go ahead and give a big line right there, all the way up there. I'm going to have it fill in right next to these. I like that. That's nice. And then a little bit of black back in the middle again. And then maybe a streak of red, the same. Kind of bring us back to the cool colors over there. I think I'll do that like this. Kind of direct our eyeball back here. Yeah, why not? Maybe we'll go this one right up to the middle. All right. Well, I think that's going to be all for now. When you make your abstract like this, they're going to be very thick and they're going to take a long time to dry. You may love it, you may not like it. It's about discovery. It's about using these different design principles, feeling out the different elements of art, and giving it a try. Yours can look completely different. In fact, I sure hope it looks completely different. I hope you did something completely original. But remember, when you're planning out, you can also change your mind. That's okay too. So I hope you had fun today with your workshop. If you had fun, don't forget to go ahead and let us know through our Facebook at DSI Art Ed Series. Thanks so much. See you next time.